Unit 2, American Revolution, Reteach Assignment. This slide is for students who were absent and need to make up their Unit 2 CBA, or students who have not completed their Unit 2 CBA. This slide is not for students who need to retake their CBA. Please continue to the next slide for retake instructions. In order to retake your Unit 2 test, read through these slides, complete this reteach quiz over the information. You must score a 90 or better. Attend one tutorial to complete your retake. The tutorials are Wednesday, October 1st, 8 a.m. with Ms. Hart. Email her and let her know you're coming. Or 4:15 to 5 with Coach Torres or Mrs. Hart. Thursday, October 2nd, lunch with Ms. Hart, get a pass from her first, or after school, 4:15 to 5 with Coach Torres. Monday, October 6th, 4:15 to 5 with Ms. Hart, or lunch with Coach Torres. Tuesday, October 7th, lunch with Coach Torres. Wednesday, October 8th, 8 a.m. with Mrs. Hart, email her and let her know you're coming. All retakes must be completed by Wednesday, October 8th. No retakes will be offered after this date. Content standards. 4A, analyzing causes of the American Revolution, including the Proclamation of 1763, the Intolerables Act, the Stamp Act, mercantilism, lack of representation in Parliament, and British economic policies following the French and Indian War. 4B, explain the roles played by significant individuals during the American Revolution, including Abigail Adams, John Adams, Wentworth Cheswell, Samuel Adams, Mercy Otis Warren, James Armstead, Benjamin Franklin, Crispus Attucks, King George III, Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, Marquis de Lafayette, Thomas Paine, and George Washington. 4C, explain the issues surrounding important events in the American Revolution, including declaring independence, fighting the battles of Lexington and Concord, Saratoga, and Yorktown, and during the winter at Valley Forge, and the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783. Supporting standards. Identify colonial grievances listed in the Declaration of Independence and explain how these grievances were addressed in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. 19A, define and give examples of unalienable rights. 29B, analyze information by applying absolute and relative chronology through sequencing, categorizing, identifying cause and effect relationships, comparing, contrasting, finding the main ideas, summarizing, making generalizations and predictions, and drawing inferences and conclusions. People of the American Revolution. Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the Declaration of Independence and served in Continental Congress. Mercy Otis Warren. She was a writer and political activist during the American Revolution who wrote plays and essays that helped shape public opinion against the British. George Washington. He was as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army and led key victories at Trenton and Yorktown. King George III. He was the King of Britain who supported policies that provoked the colonists and led to the eventual war, called a tyrant by the American colonists. Benjamin Franklin. He served as a diplomat to France and secured crucial support for the American cause, helped draft the Declaration of Independence. Abigail Adams. She was a strong and influential advocate for independence and women's rights during the American Revolution. Samuel Adams. He helped found the Sons of Liberty organization, organized protests and boycotts against British rule. Wentworth Cheswell. He was an African-American patriot during the American Revolution and served as town clerk, judge, and military officer. Patrick Henry. He gave a speech and declared, "Give me liberty or give me death," and helped rally support. James Armistead. He was an enslaved African American who acted as a spy for the Continental Army, gathering crucial intelligence that helped lead the victory at the Battle of Yorktown. Crispus Attucks. He is the first casualty of the American Revolution at the Boston Massacre and a symbol of the sacrifices made by African Americans in the fight for independence. Thomas Paine. He wrote an influential pamphlets such as Common Sense and The Crisis that helped rally support for independence and democracy in colonies. John Adams. He was a lawyer, diplomat, and politician during the American Revolution. He served on the committee of 5 writing the Declaration of Independence. Marquis de Lafayette. He was a French noble who volunteered to serve in the Continental Army at Yorktown and helped secure crucial French support for the American cause. John Paul Jones. He was a naval commander during the American Revolution and achieved several key victories against the British Navy and helped establish the United States Navy. John Hancock. He was the president of the Continental Congress and signed the Declaration of Independence with a bold signature that became a symbol of defiance against British rule. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton was a brilliant writer, organizer, and military leader during the American Revolution and served as an aide to General George Washington. General Cornwallis. He was a British military commander who led forces in several battles, including the Battle of Yorktown, and ultimately surrendering to America and the French forces, ending the war. Paul Revere. He rode to warn the colonists of British troop movements before the battles of Lexington and Concord, and played a key role in mobilizing support for the revolutionary cause. Benedict Arnold. He was a successful American military commander during the American Revolution who went to the British side in 1780, becoming one of the war's most infamous traitors. The Patriots. They were American colonists who supported the cause of independence and formed militias, engaged in acts of protest and rebellion, and fought against British forces in order to achieve their goals. Loyalists. They were American colonists who remained loyal to Britain and opposed independence and often actively supported British efforts to stop the rebellion. Sons of Liberty. They were a secret organization of patriots who organized protests and boycotts against British policies and played a key role in the resistance movement leading up to the war. The causes of the American Revolution. Top left, French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, was a war between the British and the French. The war resulted in huge debt for the English. The Proclamation of 1763 is a law passed by Parliament that forbade Americans from moving west past the Appalachian Mountains. The Quartering Act of 1765 is a law passed by Parliament that required Americans to house British soldiers. The Stamp Act of 1765 is a law passed that required all paper documents to be taxed. In the middle, the Townshend Acts of 1767 are laws passed that punish Massachusetts for opposing taxes and the Quartering Act. The Boston Massacre of 1770 is a conflict that occurs in Boston American colonists harassed British soldiers on duty. A fight occurred where several American colonists were killed during Crispus Attucks, including Crispus Attucks, used to justify the American Revolution. We're on the top right. The Tea Act of 1773 is a law placed a tax on tea and required all tea to be purchased from one source. The Boston Tea Party in 1773, colonists react to the Tea Act by throwing tea into the Boston Harbor. Intolerable Acts of 1774, laws passed to punish the citizens of Boston for the Tea Party. Britain sent more soldiers, closed the assemblies, and took away local juries. The First Continental Congress of 1774, delegates sent to discuss issues with Great Britain. Colonists wanted to govern themselves and protested taxes. Battles of the American Revolution. First battle of the Revolution is Lexington and Concord. British Army was sent to steal weapons and ammo from the colonists and arrest members of the Sons of Liberty. It was the first battle of the Revolution, known as the Shot Heard Round the World. It occurred in April 1775. The Battle of Bunker Hill. Fought for control over the hills of North Boston. Continental Army, which were the colonists, were low on ammo. They took the British Army 2 attempts to overcome the colonists. The Continental Army proved they can still stand up to the better equipped British Army and fight in June 1775. The Battle of Saratoga. The Continental Army defeated the British because the British Army underestimated the Continental Army. This is considered the turning point of the war because the American victory convinced the French and the Spanish to aid the colonists in their fight for independence against Great Britain. That was in the summer of 1777. Winter of Valley Forge, the winter of 1777 and 78. Washington used this winter to train, discipline his soldiers to be a true military. Marquis de Lafayette, France, comes to the aid of Washington and volunteered to train troops. Thomas Paine wrote The Crisis in Response to the Winter. These are the times that try men's souls. The winter at Valley Forge had many hardships, freezing conditions, no food, limited shelter, disease, death. Over 1/4 of the troops died during this time. The Battle of Yorktown, 1781. It's the final official battle of the Revolution. French Navy helped the Continental Army on water, blockading General Cornwallis. He was forced to surrender. Cornwallis surrenders and the war is over. The fighting is over. The Treaty of Paris, 1783, officially ended the Revolutionary War. Great Britain's officially recognized American independence. U.S. gained lands from Great Britain, all land east of the Mississippi River and west of the Appalachian Mountains. The new American border was the Mississippi River. The Declaration of Independence. Grievances. These are things they had a problem with. He refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. The problem, how to prevent the president from stopping passages of laws the people want and need. The grievance, he has refused to pass other laws unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature. The problem, how to prevent the president from denying representation in the legislature. The grievance, he has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from public records. The problem, how to prevent the president from calling a session of Congress in an out-of-the-way place. The grievance, he refused to cause others to be elected. The problem, how to prevent the president from preventing elections. Grievance, he has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payments of their salaries. The problem, how to prevent the president from placing the judges under his control. Grievance, he has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislature. The problem, how to prevent the president from increasing standing armies without the consent of Congress. The grievance, for quartering large bodies of troops among us. The problem, how to prevent the president from stationing troops where he pleases. The grievance, he has combined with others for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. The problem, how to prevent the president from interfering with trade. The grievance, he has combined with others for imposing taxes on us without our consent. The problem, how to prevent the president from passing additional taxes without the consent of the legislature. The grievance, he has combined with others for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government. The problem, how to prevent the president from changing our system of government.